Anyone who scores 55 points are going to miss in your fantasy lineup. You're going to miss on your regular team. Hi, guys. Lauren Shehadi, Jamey Eisenberg. Talking hoops. Tony Parker goes out with an injury, a string of injuries for San Antonio. Ginobili, of course. What do we do? Who do we pick up in lieu of them?
Yeah, the Spurs are dealing with some injuries right now because no Ginobili, no Parker. That means big things for Roger Mason. Hopefully you picked him up in your fantasy team because he's played well so far to start this year. Was starting in place of Ginobili. Now he's probably going to have to pick up his production with no Tony Parker for 2 to 4 weeks with the ankle injury. As you mentioned, coming off the 55-point game. Totally disappointing to see him go out now because he was on his way for a breakout season without Ginobili there. Tim Duncan will obviously remain the number one option in San Antonio, but this means good things for guys like Roger Mason. Even Michael Finley will hopefully pick up his scoring as well.
Okay, Mason is averaging 16 points per game. Perhaps you could see that go up. Kirk Heinrich won't be scoring because he's dealing with that thumb injury. Jamey, almost out 3 months. That's a long time.
Oh, it's a long time. You know, we had Heinrich predicted as a bust this year because of the addition of Derrick Rose. Only was going to make him that much, worse in terms of production from a fantasy perspective. But now with the injury, it's going to open the door for Derrick Rose to only continue to get better. He's been fantastic so far to start this season. His averages are great. They're going to continue to get better. And then Ben Gordon's going to see more playing time, so you're going to see his scoring go up. Ben Gordon's still playing for a contract. He's on the one-year deal right now. So you got to hope that Gordon's production will continue to improve. And then Rose has now become a must-start fantasy option because of the increased playing time.
Okay, Jamey, well, you're not going to start Josh Smith. He's dealing with that high ankle sprain. And this is a big blow for fantasy owners. They're going to have to make up for his scoring, his rebounding, his block shots, all of that.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that fill up the stat sheet. He was on the cusp of being a first-round pick so far and has got off to a good start. But, now you lose him for this time with the ankle sprain. That's going to open the door for some other Hawks players to step up. Joe Johnson's already off to a great start. He's one of the best guards so far this year. His scoring will go up. Also, Mike Bibby will see an increase in his scoring. His assists will go up. He'll have the ball in his hands a little bit more. You'll see more things from guys like Al Horford, even Marvin Williams. Those guys are definitely worth starting as well. And then Zaza Pachulia is a guy that's been inserted into the starting lineup. He's not someone that you want to pick up just yet, but again, the increased minutes for him, if you're in really deep leagues, like we're in that 30-deep league where you have 30 teams, you're looking for players, Zaza Pachulia is a guy to pick up, but don't pick him up before I do.
Oh, I'm getting him right after this. Thanks for the pointer. Okay, when I talk about Deron Williams, the Olympian, he's been out all season. When will he return?
Yeah, this is a disappointing injury for fantasy owners. You look at what's going on with a lot of these guys on the injured list, and Deron Williams is the one that sticks out the most because he's the biggest name player on this list, the Olympian, as you mentioned, a fantastic fantasy option, one of the best guards in fantasy basketball. Not on the current road trip for Utah. Hopefully he'll be back when they come back to Utah. So hopefully that'll be a situation where you can get him back in your lineup. You look at some of these other guys. Most of them will probably be in the lineup at some point this week. The most frustrating one is probably going to be Corey Maggette because a guy who's got an injury history, dealing with this hamstring problem. Now he may be out for a while. And then Al Harrington, he's sort of a frustrating thing to deal with for fantasy owners because he wants to be out of Golden State, and they're trying to.
It's very clear. He's made that very clear.
Yes, and they're trying to, acquiesce his trade opportunity and get him out of there, which is going to open the door for a guy like Brandon Wright, which is why you see him as a guy that we want to add this week.
Okay, we want to talk about that. We keep talking about guys that we want to drop, but he's a guy that you want to add. Who else are guys that you're going to want to add?
Yeah, you look at Brandon Wright, he's going to step up and has been playing well with Harrington's situation. Luke Richard Mbamute, that name is a handful
5 times fast
to say, but he's playing really well in Milwaukee. Also has to do with Michael Redd dealing with the ankle problem, but I still think you could pick him up and he could start for you at this point as a number 4 fantasy forward. And then Nick Young, talking about injuries, Gilbert Arenas is out for the Washington Wizards, so Nick Young is getting increased playing time. He's in his second year. He's definitely a guy you can keep an eye on maybe for keeper league possibilities. But you talk about Washington, we know Gilbert Arenas, when he's there, he's the point guard.
Absolutely.
Anton Jamison is the power forward. Caron Butler is a small forward. They've been waiting for someone to emerge as the shooting guard. Deshaun Stevenson has played well, but Nick Young could be the future shooting guard. Right now he's coming off the bench, but I still think you can add him at this point. He's another guy you can use as a number 4 fantasy guard.
Okay, new things in Washington. Before we wrap, Jamey, I want to talk about some player eligibility changes on this list. You, Andre Iguodala, who else?
Yeah, you talk about Michael Pietrus getting guard eligibility. Andre Iguodala, you mentioned gaining guard eligibility as well. Jermaine O'Neal and Drew Gooden, they both gained center eligibility. These were all moves that we expected, especially with Gooden and Haslam and O'Neal, guys who are starting at center for their respective teams. Iguodala seems to go back every year, back and forth between guard and forward eligibility. He's continuing to be a frustrating player for fantasy owners, but at least now you can use him as a couple different spots. They joined Josh Howard as another guy who's guard forward eligibility, but that's been the case all season long. So this just gives you a little bit more flexibility with your lineup. If you're dealing with some injuries, you can move a guy from forward to guard or forward to center, vice versa, and that can only help you, just in terms of setting your lineup.
Thanks, Jamey. I got to go. I got to work on my lineup so I can beat Jamey. For Jamey Eisenberg, I'm Lauren Shehadi. See you guys next time.